Hello, everyone. Today we're diving into a really compelling story that comes to us from the zoological gardens of southwestern Nigeria. It's all about science, survival, and security. And trust me, it's not just about birds. It's about how we protect our amazing wildlife and ultimately ourselves from threats we can't even see. So let's jump right in.
I want you to just picture this for a second. An aviary, a place that's usually just buzzing with sound and color. And then suddenly it's completely silent. That is exactly what happened back in 2022. A really aggressive outbreak of H5N1 avian flu just tore through a Nigerian zoo. And the silence it left behind was, well, it was tragic.
That silence, it sparked two massive questions for researchers. First, why? Why did this happen so fast, so completely? And second, and this is the one that really affects all of us, could it happen again? Finding the answers wasn't just about the birds anymore. It was about understanding a threat that has the potential to jump to people. Okay, so let's start with the outbreak itself, because to really get why everyone moves so fast, you have to understand just how bad this first event really was.
Take a look at this number, 100%. I mean, that is a genuinely chilling statistic. It means that every single bird in that specific aviary unit died. A total loss. This was no small thing. It was a catastrophic event that screamed just how potent the strain of H5N1 was.
So what exactly is this enemy they were up against? Well, avian influenza, or AI, is a nasty respiratory disease for birds. It's caused by influenza A viruses, and these viruses are kind of infamous for one thing in particular: their ability to change, and more importantly, to jump from one species to another.
And here's where you see the bigger picture, the real danger. Wild birds, they're the natural home for this virus, but it never stays put. It can spread to chickens and turkeys, then to other mammals, and yep, the arrow's pointing to people. That's why this is such a huge public health issue. Every single animal outbreak is a potential new threat to human health.
So, with the memory of that silent aviary fresh and the very real possibility of the virus spreading further, the scientific community in Nigeria knew they had zero time to waste. They had to get ahead of this thing, so an investigation was launched right away.
So how do you even begin to solve a mystery like this? You go on a hunt. This was a super methodical search for clues, taking researchers all across southwestern Nigeria and turning these local zoos into, believe it or not, the front lines of a major scientific investigation. The researchers had a really smart plan. They broke their study down into a clear two-part mission. Step 1, hunt for the virus. Find out if it's still out there, lurking. And Step 2, grade the defenses. Basically, see how prepared the zoos were to stop another disaster. Now, this virus hunt was a huge undertaking. The team collected 149 samples from all kinds of birds, and they did this across 7 different zoos. They were basically casting a super wide net, making sure that if the virus was hiding anywhere, they were going to find it. And we are not just talking about your average city pigeons here. No way. They were sampling these incredible, majestic, and often vulnerable species, like the black-crowned crane and the ostrich. Every single sample from these amazing creatures was like a critical piece of a giant puzzle. So once they had all these samples, how did they check them? They used this really advanced molecular technique, RT-qPCR. The easiest way to think about it is like a super-powered DNA scanner that can spot even the tiniest little fragment of the virus. It guaranteed that if the virus was there, they would know. Okay, so while that hunt was going on, the other part of the team was focused on the zoo's defenses. They went to 13 different zoos and used a really detailed questionnaire to assess their biosecurity programs. It was like they were creating a safety report card for each one. And that report card, well, that's where the story takes a really interesting twist. What the investigation found was actually pretty surprising, and in a good way.
Okay, so this brings us back to the number one question of the entire virus hunt. After that horrible 2022 outbreak, was that deadly H5N1 virus still floating around, silently infecting the birds in these zoos?
And the answer was a huge, resounding no. 0%. Not a single one of the 149 samples came back positive for avian flu. This was literally the best news they could have hoped for. The immediate threat seemed to have just vanished. But why? I mean, how does a virus that destructive just disappear? The study pointed to one clear answer: the zoo's own biosecurity. The defensive measures that they had put in place, they had actually worked. So just how strong were these defenses? Well, the data speaks for itself. The report card was impressive. 100%, all of the zoos had good practices for controlling who and what came in and out. Over 92% had their food and water safety locked down, and almost 85% were doing a great job with hygiene and waste.
So here's the bottom line. The study didn't just find that the virus was gone. It found out why it was gone. These zoos already had strong biosecurity protocols in place, and they were working, acting like a powerful shield against the spread of disease.
And this brings us to the final, and honestly the most important takeaway from all of this. The story doesn't just stop with the 0% result. It's really a lesson for the future, showing us that our absolute best weapon against the next outbreak is just constant, tireless vigilance.
This quote right here, it just nails the core message of the whole study. Biosecurity isn't some optional extra you do if you have time. It is the #1 strategy for preventing disease. It's the whole ballgame, especially in a place like Nigeria, where they don't have approved vaccines for avian flu.
So, how do we stay vigilant? Well, the study gives us a pretty clear roadmap. It calls for even stronger quarantine systems for any new animals coming in. It says we need to improve hygiene for everyone, staff, visitors, you name it. And critically, it says we need to start thinking of zoos as key partners in watching out for new diseases.
And let's never forget what this is all for. It's about protecting the health and the lives of these absolutely magnificent animals, like this Indian peafowl. Their survival in our modern world really depends on how seriously we take all of these protective measures. And that leaves us with one last big idea to think about. This study kind of reframes how we should see zoos. They aren't just for entertainment. They are critical outposts on the front lines of public health, watching for threats that affect every single one of us. So the question for all of us is, how can we do a better job of supporting them in that incredibly vital work?